Jack, careful. Gotta watch where your side's directed.
I had a good one. I wanted to actually
A couple more. We've got you. Brian. Hey, Brian.
That's right.
Thanks everyone for being here. It's really important. You know, for those of us who are concerned about the temporary foreign worker program, this has been an incredibly important week. On Monday, the parliamentary budget officer, who's a guy who was actually appointed by Stephen Harper himself, released a report that said unequivocally that there is no labor shortage in Canada. So the argument that the government, the Harper government has been making, and the argument that's been made by employers both in the service sector and in the construction sector, that we need this temporary foreign worker program because there simply aren't Canadians there to do the job, it was debunked by the Parliament's own budget officer this week. And later this week, just yesterday, we received another report reaching the same conclusions produced by a professor from the University of Lethbridge. So let's count this right now. So in 1 week, we've got 2 reports debunking the justification that the Harper government has been using to support the temporary foreign worker program, and that's just in 1 week. In addition to those 2 studies, the week before, Statistics Canada came to the same conclusion. The week before that, an organization called the Institute for Research on Public Policy out of Montreal came to the same conclusion. So over the last 2 months, we've heard from academics, from researchers, from policy analysts, from coast to coast to coast, all saying that this is a program that is built on lies. You know, it's gotten to be so obvious. It's so obvious that this is a program out of control that even the right-wing Fraser Institute, which is usually firmly in the corner of business, has come out with a report saying that the temporary foreign worker program is distorting the Canadian labor market and driving down wages. You know that you're on the right side of an issue when even the Fraser Institute is agreeing with you. So it doesn't mean that they're right. It means that they have no justification. And just to show how absurd the situation has become with the Harper government on this issue, when confronted with this growing mountain of evidence that their program doesn't make sense and is unjustified, when they were confronted with all this evidence in Parliament this week, you know what the minister had to say for himself? He said, well, we've been building our labor market policy on a strong foundation. We found research that could be trusted. We found research that's credible. And you know where they're basing their decisions on? Kijiji! The want ads in Kijiji. The minister actually got up in Parliament and said, we need the temporary foreign worker program because there's a lot of crappy employers offering crappy wages on Kijiji. Can you believe this? So what's the truth? What's the truth about the temporary foreign worker program? What's the truth about Stephen Harper's temporary foreign worker program? The first conclusion that can be drawn and needs to be drawn is that this is an unnecessary program. The second conclusion that can be drawn and needs to be drawn is that this is a program that's being used by employers to drive down wages, even in a strong economy like Alberta where wages should be going up. The third conclusion that needs to be drawn, especially for all of you here, and we've got a large number of tradespeople here The third conclusion is a very troubling conclusion, and that is that this temporary foreign worker program is not being used to fill a need, it's being used to flood the market. It's being used to displace Canadians who would otherwise be filling some of the best jobs in our economy, and that's a shame. The fourth thing that we can conclude is that this program is actually being used to, as an excuse for employers not to train, which is a huge irony, because in the construction industry especially, we've got employers on one hand crying labor shortage. They say we need to train more skilled workers, but at the same time, employers, when given the choice to use this program, they make it so easy for employers to use this program. Why on earth would these guys train the next generation of skilled trades when they can simply reach into the program, grab a journeyman from abroad and plunk him in without having to spend the 4 years that it's necessary to trade a Canadian trade? And you know what? This is not hypothetical, brothers and sisters. This is happening every day on work sites across this province. You guys will remember the situation involving Pacer Promec. You remember that situation? And are there iron workers here? Okay, we have a couple of iron workers in the crowd, and I want to shout out to the Iron Workers Local 720, because when they heard that their members were being displaced by temporary workers brought in from Croatia, that local stood up for their members, they brought it out to the public, they fought for their members' jobs, they embarrassed that employer, and they got their jobs back. But I want to make it really clear, if this had happened in a non-union workplace, as it is happening every day across this province, there's no watchdog. There's no one to go to bat for the Canadians who are being displaced, and so the result is that they're being displaced and no one even knows about it. Okay? And that's a shame. So what do we do about this? First, we need to do what we're doing today, which is to come together, to tell our stories, and to talk to our brothers and our sisters, our neighbors, our co-workers, to tell them that even here in the heart of conservative Alberta, Albertans have had enough with Stephen Harper's temporary foreign worker program. We need to come together. We need to come together and say, you know what? Canada is a country that was built through immigration, but the temporary foreign worker program is not immigration, it's exploitation. And I want to make it really clear. We in the labor movement and all of us who are concerned about the temporary foreign worker program, we're not opposed to the people who are being brought in by this program, because we are a country that was created by people coming from elsewhere. So we're not opposed to the people, we're opposed to the program. So what are we calling for? We're calling for a number of simple, straightforward things. First of all, we need serious enforcement. Yes! Because we've got a government that says on one hand, well, we have rules. We have rules that say that temporary foreign workers can't be paid less than Canadians. We have rules that say that Canadians can't be displaced by temporary foreign workers. But you know what? The rules are being broken. And rules don't mean anything unless you have enforcement. But the Harper government, which created this monster, they put millions and millions of dollars into creating this bureaucratic infrastructure to make sure that the applications from employers who want to use this program are processed within days. But you know what they haven't put money into? They haven't hired a single enforcement officer to make sure that the rules that they put in place aren't being abused. This is shocking, but it shocks me every time I say it, but it's true. There isn't a police force for the temporary foreign worker program. There's no one going out to work sites to make sure that these workers aren't being exploited. There's no one going out to the work sites to make sure that Canadians aren't being displaced. And there's no one going out to these work sites to make sure that wages are not being undermined. So that's the first thing that we need. We need enforcement. The second thing that we need is for the government to get rid of these fast-track streams of the temporary foreign worker program that are making it able for employers to use the temporary foreign worker program as a first choice rather than a last resort. Okay, so and I just want to talk in construction. They introduced something here in Alberta, and it's just in Alberta. It's called the Alberta Occupation Specific Pilot Project. Pretty innocuous sounding name. But what does it mean? What it means that every occupation that's on the list of that pilot project, employers can hire temporary foreign workers into those occupations without proving first that they've offered the jobs to Canadians. Shame. So those streams have to be eliminated. The third thing that we need is a sunshine list. We need transparency. We need to know which employers are making use of this program. We need to know which work sites are making use of this program, because if we don't know where the temporary foreign workers are, and we don't right now, if we don't know where they are, we can't make sure they're not being exploited, and we can't make sure that employers aren't using this program to displace Canadians and drive down jobs. The final thing that we need, brothers and sisters, is for people like you and other people who are concerned about this program to make this a political issue going into the next federal election. And this is especially important here in Alberta, where we elected almost all Conservative MPs during the last election, with the notable exception of one of our other guests today, Linda Duncan, the New Democrat from across the river. I think it's interesting that the only MP that's actually here is the New Democrat MP. But leading into the next election, we have to make this a political issue, and we got to say, we have to make it really clear to Mr. Harper, to Mr. Kenney, and to all the other Conservative MPs in this province that they will not win election in this province again as long as they continue to support this unsupportable, unjustifiable temporary foreign worker program.